Got a good one today. It's Tracy Kelly, owner of Paperboy Marketing. Love that name. In this episode, we start off on a more vulnerable note, talking about his journey in recovery. We also cover topics on, obviously, flyer delivery and flyer strategy, buying businesses, growth marketing strategies, amongst some other things. It's a good one. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to the episode.
My story actually starts in 2019. In 2019, my life was a mess. From the outside looking in, everything looked perfect. Was married, had the dream house, had a couple great kids, was always in the center of the action, lots of parties, working for a growing marketing agency. But behind the curtains, behind the scenes, what really was going on is my marriage was falling apart. I was struggling with alcohol. I was missing key moments of my little kid's life because I was too hungover. And I felt like a cog in the wheel helping somebody build a business that didn't really care about me. So in 2020, I left the marriage, I left the house, I left alcohol and drugs behind, dealt with the wreckage of my past, and really started rebuilding myself. And that led to me starting a consulting business, doing marketing for other businesses. And that led into purchasing Paperboy and purchasing another business, a direct mail business called Our Town America. And I'm happy to report, we're at the end of 2024. Haven't had a drink or drug in almost 5 years. I'm in a really healthy relationship with a woman named Michelle, and she's got a couple kids. We've got some puppies together. My kids have no recollection of me ever being hungover or drunk. I've got a great relationship with them. So it's been a little bit of a journey to get here, but I'm excited to be here.
Wow. Coming out right of the gate, just vulnerability.
Here it is, man.
Laying it all on the table.
This is who I am. Take it or leave it,
Wow.
But I am who I am,
I mean, let's dive into that for a second if you're comfortable doing it. How does somebody turn around their life? Everybody wants to get into better shape, stop, drink less, and you went to the absolute extreme. How'd you do it?
Well, sometimes we have a moment in time, something that happens. For me, I had that moment. I had a situation that, I found out that my wife had a boyfriend, and it was like a gut punch. And I realized, okay, there's part of her in that situation, but how did I become a person where that was like an okay thing to do, right? I think in the back of my mind, I always knew that alcohol was holding me back, and I was using it to numb the pain. And so I got to a point where I said to myself, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I got some guidance from a man that I trust, and he said, hey, there's this other way to do things. Maybe try that. If it doesn't work out for you, you can always go back to doing what you're doing. So I tried this pathway. I tried it out, and it's been working well ever since. And so yeah, sometimes you just got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired.
What do you tell yourself if you're tempted, or, for me, alcohol has been an interesting journey, and I'll go months at a time without anything. And then the pain of it, or the feelings that I have after drinking, they like kind of diminish, and I forget about how it's such a bad trade.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'd gone a couple months without a drink, and last night at a Christmas party, I had an old fashioned and a glass of wine, and I'm driving here today, and I'm like, why'd I do that? Like, I'm not super hungover or anything, but I'm not as sharp as I have been the last couple months after 2 drinks. And I'm thinking to myself, there's such it's such a weird pull that it has in the moment, even though tomorrow and you're not going to be happy with yourself.
Yeah.
What do you tell yourself in those moments where you feel a pull?
Yeah. Well, so I have a spiritual remedy that has worked for me. I'm in a community of other people who have chosen not to drink, And for me, it's a spiritual based program, not necessarily religious, but very spiritual. So I'm in a community of people that are like-minded, that are also not drinking. It's very similar. It's a supportive community, and I see a lot of parallels between that community with the community that you and I met with or met through.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's I've made a commitment to myself. I'm on a process. I know for me, I can't just have 2 drinks. I've got a physical allergy that takes it to the next level. And so if I want to continue showing up the way that I want to show up for my kids, if I want to continue to show up for the employees that you met, and serve them, I need to do that with a clear mind. And so for me, at this point, it's a higher purpose. I'm not just doing it for me, but I'm doing it for my community and the people that, look to me for support.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Getting outside yourself, I can see how that is way more motivational, or keeps you accountable and keeps you on the straight and narrow. Okay, well, thanks for starting off so vulnerable. This is gonna be awesome.
You were
bro.
not expecting that, were you?
No, I wasn't, but I'm very happy and pleasantly surprised, because honestly, when it's just these episodes, when it's just like cut and dry, and like business is so much more personal, and I like the fact that like there's heart and soul behind all of this, and you can read textbooks and you can read all the thought leaders, but at the end of the day, it's how do you want to build your business, and that's what I want to learn from you. And there's some saying where it's like the universal is described in the specific, or something like that. I don't know. So whatever problems that you have specifically dealt with or overcome, they actually apply to a lot of people, because we're all in this human experience. So what's the story behind getting the purchase of Paperboy, and what attracted you to this industry?
Yeah. Well, so I've been doing marketing since I was in 8th grade. I grew up in a small family business, and that was one of the duties that I had. Went to school for marketing, got a marketing degree, and like I mentioned earlier, I've worked for different marketing agencies. So I'm a marketer through and through. And so I specifically remember when I moved to the home I live in now in White Bear Lake, I remember getting a flyer at the door. I remember that feeling. And so when I was on my own, just doing the consulting business, and I saw that Paperboy marketing was for sale, I said, that's a great marketing tactic. My background's digital, but I understand and have always tried to layer in physical or traditional or paper marketing. So I said, hey, this is something that I think I can do. Some people buy rental houses. I found that for around the same price, you can buy businesses. And I'd rather spend my time working on operations, marketing, sales than redoing a kitchen, right? So I saw this opportunity for sale in 2023 and said, let's do it.
What was do you remember the marketing piece that you saw in the mail that kind of had that aha moment?
I very much do. Yeah, it was a Pears Painting flyer.
Okay, nice.
Yep. So Pears Painting is a local painter here in the Twin Cities metro area. And I very distinctly remember that flyer.
So you saw the flyer and you thought, oh, that's a good looking flyer. This is a good approach to get somebody's attention. Let me learn more.
Yep. So, I mean, the flyer happened a summer or two before I bought Paperboy. But when I was looking for businesses and I saw a flyer, distribution businesses for sale, I did a little bit more research into it. I'm like, that's that company. I remember when they put a flyer at my door.
Okay, so let's talk about, I actually do want to talk about buying businesses later on, but for now, let's focus on the flyers and Paperboy's value proposition. So why would let's talk about, this whole show is aimed at the owner-operator doing 6 figures, wants to get to 6 vans. Why should they think about using flyers, and how is that it goes a little countercultural to Facebook and social media and whatever, digital.
Yeah.
Why is flyers a good idea?
Yeah. Well, they're high impact, right? Somebody puts a flyer on your front door handle or in your newspaper box below your mailbox. It stands out. It's, I don't know if you follow Gary Vee. He talks a lot about marketing is all about attention. Where can you capture attention that's not being captured? The front door is a great place to get somebody's attention. Their newspaper box below their mailbox is another great place to get their attention. And so it's just a way to stand out. The other thing that people really like about it is it's very targeting. You can pick the exact neighborhood that you want to deliver flyers to. And it's relatively low cost. And with flyers, the costs pretty much stay consistent throughout the year. One of the challenges that I've noticed with digital marketing is Google, Meta continue to raise pricing. It's very easy for anybody to do Google or Meta, which is Meta, Facebook, and Instagram advertising. And the more people that are doing it in your area with your service category, it just jacks the price up. And so it's pretty cost effective. The ROI can be really, really good. So that's why people are doing it.
What are the components of a great flyer?
Yeah. So I've got one here, and we walked over to, so one of the cool things about owning Paperboy Marketing is I'm co-located with one of my largest clients. And so I showed you kind of the wall of all of the flyers, and I took you out to the warehouse where they had all the different flyers for this painting company. So a great, effective flyer has a really clear headline. So in this case, we've got a geography. So this one says Minnesota House Painters. We have ones that'll say Minneapolis House Painters, Summit Avenue House Painters, but very clear headline. Location, and what do you do? I'd rather have a clear flyer than a clever flyer. Some sort of an image that represents what you're doing. So in this case, we've got a before, we've got an after, right? So Minnesota House Painters, before and after picture, and then the logo, right? So all of the best flyers that I do have something like this on the front side.
That's very clean. Easy to understand.
Again, this is hanging on your door. You know what it's for. You don't have to guess, right? If you're intrigued enough to flip it over, on the back, they always put a review, a trust factor. So here's a 5-star Google review with a happy looking family in front of their house, right? Imagine yourself being this family with this beautifully painted house that is the envy of the neighborhood, right? I like what they put on there. They've got the process of working together, right? This is what it takes. They've got a couple value propositions, which is, in this case, it's local and trusted, house painting service. And then they always put a picture of the founder with a little bit of information about the founder. And then the last and probably most critical piece is, how do you get a hold of them? Wow. In this case, they've got a QR code, and it's schedule a free estimate. So you can do it on the QR code. You can do it on the phone number. And it says self-schedule in 2 minutes. Make it super clear. So this company is one of the, I would say, top flyer companies in the country in terms of they've tested and refined and refined and refined. They have it down to a science. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do that if you have multiple services?
Give me an example.
A plumber, or this works because it's so visual.
Yes.
Talk to me about a tree care company that, I guess that's a little bit more simple, that they just take down trees. You get it before and after, but let's go with the plumber. How does a plumber make this pop?
Yeah. So similar idea, Minneapolis home plumbers, right? Keep it simple. The before and after picture, probably not a before and after picture, right? In that case, what I would do is have a happy looking family, maybe standing by the bathroom or by a sink. So we're looking at that case at the end result. Hey, I'm standing by my sink and I'm smiling. When I called you, I was standing by my sink and I was not smiling, right? So a little bit more of a generic photo in that case. And then the logo, same idea, right? And with things like plumbers, HVAC, electrical, even garage door, oftentimes you want to be remembered when it's an emergency, right? So something like painting, it's like, hey, I want to do this, but if I don't get my house painted for 3 months, I'll be fine.
Right.
Something with a plumber or an electrical or HVAC, it's negative 20 degrees out and my furnace went out, right? So one interesting tactic that I've seen done with flyers is we'll attach a magnet to the flyer. Put this magnet at your breaker box if it's an electrician. Put this magnet on your furnace if it's put this magnet on your garage door.
Wow.
Put this magnet, on your garbage disposal. I don't know if you can attach a magnet on a garbage disposal, but the idea being put this where you'll see it so when it breaks down, you call me.
That's
right?
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it's all about being there when it counts.
Wow. Okay, man. That's worth the price of admission right there, man. That's so good. So how does is there a point where it should be like a DIY versus then hire it out to Paperboy? Where does it make sense to outsource, or where should somebody just hustle it themselves?
Yeah, I always recommend, especially, if you're growing, hustle it yourself. Get to know the neighborhoods that you're working in. There's the concept that I'm sure many home service providers are familiar with, which is the 10 around or the 20 around, which is if you're doing work in a home, go hit the 20 homes with a flyer, a door hanger, the 20 closest homes, right? Always do that. That should be part of the service process. Yeah, it's a little bit annoying if you're the service tech because you just want to get in, fix the problem, and move on. But you're in the neighborhood. People see your van. You might as well get that little bit of extra exposure. So those are easy ones that I think people should just incorporate into their normal business process. When it comes to doing a little bit more targeted, I always recommend give it a try. As I shared with you earlier, it's a lot more sophisticated and difficult than it looks, but some companies have figured it out. So when we're talking about this is a regular, consistent lead flow for you, oftentimes it makes sense to hire it out. But the reality is most markets don't have a solid flyer delivery company. That is one of the things that Minneapolis, we're kind of lucky that we have Paperboy. There was another company that was doing this. They started in the 70s, but they went out of business last year. So it's tough, right? I wish I could say that this is an easy thing to implement, but it's something you've got to work and figure it out.
What's the so they scan that QR code, it goes to just a simple form, or like how should people think about what that next step is? How much information do you really need? You try to minimize friction, or is that a place to start diving in and really getting some information? What would we recommend for that next step?
So if we can reduce friction, we always want to do that. Keep it relatively simple would be my recommendation. So oftentimes I get asked, and this is usually by other marketers, how much data are you tracking and pulling through on the flyer side? Like, is this your QR code? Is this your et cetera, et cetera? And the reality is I leave that up to the clients that I'm working with, right? So in this case, this QR code is tied to their CRM. You mentioned tree care companies. I work with a tree trimmer who puts his cell phone number on there. He wants people calling or texting him. So I don't, at this stage of the business, I don't get overly involved of where the call to action is going through, because our service is more about getting the delivery out there versus tracking their leads and tracking how their lead flow goes, because the companies that I'm working with tend to be a little bit more sophisticated, and they're running multi-channels campaigns, and they're funneling things through their internal system.
Gotcha.
And I think that's another important piece of this. Flyer delivery should never be your only marketing channel.
Mm.
The best companies are doing 2, 3, 4, 8 different channels. And if a company comes to me and says, hey, I've only got, $5,000 a month for marketing, and I want you to do that, I say no. I want to be a piece of the pie. I don't want to be the whole pie, because there's things like weather that can slow us down.
Mm.
There are too many variables that could screw it up. And if you're only relying on one marketing source, you're going to get yourself in trouble.
The reason I have apprehension around approaching people's doors, putting something on it, is there anything that you can say about, is that fear rational, or is that just an irrational fear to like open up somebody's door and put a door hanger on? Or do people feel weird about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I do deliveries occasionally, and it can be uncomfortable for me. Typically with our process, we don't have to open up people's door, because we've got this rubber band that we can put it on the outside door handle. In the vast majority of the cities, you don't need any sort of license, etc., because we're not knocking on the door. Solicitation is in like 95% of the cities is when you're actually knocking on the door. All we're doing is dropping off a flyer. So we're not engaging with people, right? We're just dropping it off, moving on to the next house. Now, here's the reality. That's the law. People's perception, on the other hand, is where it gets a little tricky, right? It's not uncommon for homeowners to say, hey, I have a no solicitation sign and you dropped off a flyer. Well, sorry, Mr. Homeowner, like, we didn't solicit. We dropped off a flyer. We didn't knock on your door. To combat that, we have a couple things. One, we have a stop list. So if somebody reaches out and says, I don't want you dropping off a flyer at my house, we have a form on our website where they can fill out their address. We get that feedback, and then we add it to our map. So anytime a contractor or a delivery professional is out, they have a physical map, and it has big marks on it where don't deliver this house, don't deliver that house. And so that's the one of a value add of working with a company like Paperboy is we have and maintain a stop list. So somebody who got a painting flyer that doesn't want flyers isn't going to get your tree trimming flyer either, right? So that's helpful. The other thing is sometimes instead of calling, they just leave a negative Google review. And I don't know if you've ever gotten a negative Google review, but especially as a small business owner, it stings. I turned off the notifications on Google Business Profile because I don't like those stings, right? But if you're, say, for example, the painting company, we have a simple copy and paste that says, thank you for your message. Sorry that they delivered a flyer. We use a third-party service. Here's a link to get off their list. And then you mark that as irrelevant or off topic. And oftentimes Google will remove that because it shows that A, you responded, B, it was a third-party delivery service. And then they usually give me the bad, the 1-star review, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
That's ridiculous, but I guess the law of large numbers is you're gonna run into people that have nothing better to do with their time.
That's it. When you look at a company like this painting company, I think they did like 400,000 flyers with us this year, and
wow,
you get 15 of those calls, 15 out of 400,000. Like, what are those? What's the stats on that?
Right. Yeah. So give us a little context. You just mentioned you delivered 400,000. I mean, that's a ridiculous number of flyer deliveries. What's like a typical week, or what's the the scale, I guess, right now of Paperboy?
Yeah. So this year, I'd have to look at. I don't actually track the daily numbers, but I know we're going to be doing around 1.5 million flyers this year throughout the Twin Cities. So we have peak times, right? So we work with a lot of home service businesses so that midway through March through June-ish, we'll be doing 50,000 flyers in a week.
Wow.
This time of year, we're recording this in December. Like last year, I don't think we were delivering any flyers in December, but we expanded our client base to get out of just home service. And so we're like, even this week, we're delivering 10 or 12,000 flyers. So it scales kind of depending on the season, but we do anywhere from 10,000 flyers in a week to 50, 60,000 flyers in a week. Hopefully more. We're trying to grow this.
Do you have any success stories that people have shared with you that you could maybe share with the viewers or listeners to give them some motivation to look into this?
Yeah. So Paris Painting is a really good example of a company who has run flyer campaigns for a long time. So they have it really consistent. They have it very targeted to the neighborhoods. And Caleb wrote a review on our Google business profile earlier this year that said they spent something like maybe $160,000 with us this year on flyer delivery. The number could be a little off. It was, let's just say $160,000 of flyer delivery. Their return for closed business was over $2 million in painting jobs. So that's a little bit of an extreme example because they've been running flyer campaigns for multiple years, hitting the same neighborhoods regularly, consistently, but that's something that's possible, right?
That's insane. That's I can't do that math, but it's a crazy ROI. What is that like? Do you know that a percentage?
I don't know. I don't know the percentage, but it's anytime you can spend $1 and get $10, and we're talking better than that, like that's a good ROI on
that's
your.
That's pretty good ROI. Yeah, that's pretty decent.
So really, that's again years of being consistent at it, but it just goes to show the power of standing out, right? That's really what this is about. It's about standing out in a way that it's easy to scroll by a Facebook ad. It's easy to, scroll by a Google ad, but when you have to take this off your front door handle, you're at least going to see it and remember it,
In that same regard, do you have any other ideas that you haven't monetized or that wouldn't be necessarily businesses, but where do you think other places of underpriced attention are?
Yeah, so I think I've seen people, I don't know the return on it, but I regularly see yard signs at key intersections. Now, that's a little dicey because you're sometimes in right of way and you're not supposed to do that. I always think it's funny that they don't put their business name. They just say like pressure washing and then a phone number. I think that's a little, like the missed opportunity. But I've seen there's a company that does pretty good with yard signs. I think that direct mail, that's another big opportunity. Everybody that I work with that is having success with flyers is also doing postcards and other direct mail. Which is why I bought a business in that realm, because people have kind of gone away from it. So your mailbox is a little bit more free now than it was a couple years ago. And that's another thing where you've got that consistency on price, right? You can plan around having the same price for a postcard all year round, or at least at minimum 6 months, where with Facebook, Google, Instagram, those prices fluctuate depending on seasonality and how many people are in that market.
Speaking of B&I and all that sort of thing, I think one piece that I admire about you is your networking. And we don't know each other like really great yet, but from what I do know, it seems like you have built a very strong network, and relationships are key to growing any business, whether it's a a flyer company or a plumbing company. What would be a piece of advice or word of wisdom for an owner operator right now about growing their network and focusing more on the business side rather than just the operation side?
Yeah. Well, start now. Start getting to know people now. Come at it with a what can I do to be of service to you mindset. I look at, for me personally, I've been very fortunate to I have a very strong marketing community here in the Twin Cities. I've been part of the marketing community, for 8-10 years, maybe longer, at least starting with the agency world. And it's a long game. Don't burn bridges, stay in communication with people, do what you say you're going to do, own up to your mistakes. Here's the thing. I've made a lot of mistakes. I kind of talked about this at the beginning. Back in 2020, I had to deal with some of the wreckage of my past, and I had to go to people and say, hey, look, I showed up in a way that wasn't cool. I'm sorry. Whether you accept my apology or not, that's your choice, but I'm doing my part to say what I did wasn't cool, and I'm sorry. And now it's just getting to know people, being genuinely curious about what they're up to, making connections when appropriate, and just being consistent. It's kind of like marketing. Be consistent, have a good message, do what you say you're going to do, and it's funny how things kind of work together,
Is network marketing, is that how you do most of your Paperboy marketing, or what works for you?
Like getting referrals and stuff
like that? How do you get customers for for Paperboy?
Yeah, it's a combination. So about half of the business comes from people that I know or that I've met or that have been referred in. And then the other half are people that find us online.
Nice.
I did get a pretty good client this year, very consistent, steady business, who got one of our flyers for his competitor at his front door. And he services a different area, part of town, so they don't actually overlap. But he's like, oh, I know this guy. I like this guy. If he's doing it, then I want to do it.
Nice.
So,
what about hiring? What have you learned about hiring?
Oh man,
how do you find a good person? How do you? So
I'm learning a lot about hiring. So what I found is really focus on talking about what are the core values of our business, and just being very upfront about that. I try to be very upfront also about, we're trying to sell the opportunity of working with us, but also being very blunt and transparent about, here's the hard part about the working here. Like it's going to be a lot of walking. I hope you're okay with that. It's physically tough. You have to be able to understand how a map works. There's going to be times where it's frustrating. And so I've just learned setting expectations throughout the process has been helpful, but that's still an area where I've got a lot of learning and growth to do.
Question that comes to mind with you started this podcast so transparent and vulnerable, and it's like, wow, that was refreshing. Is that how you operate in all aspects of your life and in the business? Have you learned that that's just the way you like to communicate or present? Or
I try to, right? It's like, kind of like I said, take me or leave me, but here's who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And so we are right for some people and we're not right for a lot of people. And so I'd rather have just, this is who we are. This is what we're doing, and even with new clients, I say, hey, the good thing, I always like to go through the good, bad, and ugly with flyer delivery. Like the good thing is this can be a tremendous lead generation and branding marketing channel for your business. The bad part is we're working with humans, and as humans, we're flawed people. And so we're going to miss some houses. We might miss a street. We might deliver outside the area. And then the ugly is sometimes homeowners get upset and they yell and they call you and they leave you a Google review. So you have to be, if you want the good, you have to be prepared to deal with the bad and the ugly, right? And if you're okay with that, then let's continue this conversation. And if you're not, that's okay. We're not going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
You know,
Kind of like anything, just risk and reward.
that's it. Yep. So I try to be, because I've just found laying out those expectations ahead of time make the long term much easier, you know.
How do you view growth and going after your vision, or like goals, growth, vision? Are you just a pretty steady person, or do you actually, I don't even want to present options. I'm just curious
Sure.
about what your philosophy is on growth.
Yeah. So I mean, I strive to grow regularly and consistently. What I've experienced in just the last 12 months has been a ton of personal and professional growth. I feel like joining BNI has been very helpful, because I'm building this community and I'm seeing what else is possible. Again, to be very transparent, I'm personally in a spot where it's like, okay, I hit a lot of the goals that I had, and my vision is a little blurry right now. So in a week, I'm taking like a 4-day right before the holidays, because my kids are with their mom. And so my partner, Michelle, and I are going on a 4-day retreat. She also owns a small business. And we're going to have some tough conversations about, like, maybe not tough, but we're going to be very reflective and insightful. Like, where do we want to be in 10 years? And I think the biggest thing that I've been missing lately is like, why? I just did an event last week and I laid out a 3-year plan, because that was kind of the agenda that we went through. And I've got numbers financially, business wise, where I want to be, but I couldn't really give a solid answer when the facilitator said, "Why do you want to be there, Tracy? Why?" And so I've got some soul searching to do. It's good stuff, right? I mean, I know that, like, I want to be the best dad I can to my kids. I want to break the generational curse of alcoholism in my family. I want to help others, achieve sobriety and maintain sobriety. I've got some other, I want to be a positive member in my local community, in my kids' school. But I think I need to shore that up a little bit more. And how do I tie that with the things that we're trying to do at the business level? So that's kind of a long-winded answer that didn't really.
That's so true. No, that's real, because I'm battling that too. That's why I asked the question. Is I getting clear on what you want is so hard. I don't know why it's so hard, but
because it changes.
Yeah,
you reach a plateau and then, like, wow, I didn't really think that this was possible, but I'm here now. Now what? Right?
Yeah, that's very true. And it changes. And then it's like, the longer you pursue something, if you set a bigger goal, you don't get that feedback of the success. And so it's like when you're in the day-to-day, you get those little dopamine hits of getting the quick wins. But if you actually want to build something bigger that goes after your vision, I have trouble sticking to that vision, because there's a lot of just there's not a lot of feedback along the journey.
Yep.
But something I have been thinking about is buying a business, and not anytime soon. I still am growing mine and happy with that, but I like the idea. Would you, after purchasing Paperboy and experiencing this whole way of getting into business, or transitioning from marketing agency work to business owner, would you buy another one? I just think it's something that not enough people are talking about. And I mentioned earlier, Cody Sanchez is somebody I've been listening to, and she's all about buying businesses. And it's a different way to think about it. It's not as glamorous maybe, but it's maybe a lot more strategic. And I think some people think it's unattainable because, oh, this business is doing a couple million in revenue. How am I going to buy that business? What do you have to reflections on buying Paperboy and then looking forward? Is it something that you would sell, or would you buy another one and create your own holding company?
Yeah, well, I kind of alluded to this, but I bought a second business this year.
Mm,
Our Town America, which is a direct mail business.
mm,
And so our big differentiator in that world, in addition to doing postcards, our main differentiator is we have a new mover envelope. So let's say you move to St. Paul. When you move into a specific zip code of St. Paul, you get this big oversized envelope that says housewarming gifts for the Green family. You open it up and it's got gift certificates to a free entree at, this restaurant. Our most popular certificate is a free large 2-topping pizza at a pizza shop. And you get a free ice cream cone. We work with a ton of Culvers, so they're in these. And that business, it's a franchise. And so I bought a territory, so kind of the western half of the Twin Cities. And so would I buy another one? Yes, I did buy another one. It's been a really good crossover. So now I've got access to postcards and direct mail, as well as I bought a book of business. So Paperboy Marketing had clients when I bought it. So I bought cash flow. Our Town America had clients when I bought it. So I bought cash flow. And so then it's my job to increase the cash flow and see if I can decrease the expenses. So yeah, I'm always on the lookout for opportunities. And I think that what most people, they think that it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to buy businesses. But I kind of alluded to this earlier. You can buy businesses for as much as it costs to buy a house or less. So if you're thinking of buying like a rental property, maybe look at buying a business. Now there's a lot more nuances. The financing is different, or can be a lot more work depending on what they have in place for employees. So it's definitely not the same, but just it's very attainable. And I think the thing that resonates with me when I listen to or see some of Cody Sanchez content is it's just the fact of the matter is there's all these businesses that are owned by the baby boom generation that might just close shop because nobody's there to take it over. And so with Paperboy Marketing, I did owner financing, and the guys have been absolutely phenomenal partners on that. And as you've met some of them, like their partner mentality, right? So that not everybody's going to find somebody that's as amazing of a group to work with as I did, but there's opportunities out there. Not many people are familiar with it, and I'm a huge proponent of it. So my plan is to own other businesses through acquisition. Absolutely.
Oh, cool. What would be maybe a parting word to that 6-figure owner operator right now? Just with all your business acumen, life experience, what would you want to leave them with? And what's the parting word?
Community. Go find a community, whether that's through a group like BNI, maybe a chamber community, maybe it's through your faith community, maybe it's through a recovery community, but just don't do it alone. I think one of the things that I've learned in business ownership is it can feel lonely, hanging out with a group of friends that are still working the 9 to 5. Like, it's a different mindset, and it's okay, but you need to find a community that understands what you're going through, that can support you through that, whether it's just bouncing ideas off. But community has gotten me from what I was like in 2019 to what I'm like today as we roll into 2025.